August 19th is World Humanitarian Day, a day the UN sets aside to honor aid workers everywhere. In the height of hurricane season, this is a timely moment to talk about protecting both vulnerable children and families. Joining us now is actor Kristoffer Polaha, who's partnered with World Vision for several years and who you'll also see in the brand new series this fall, American Hostage, alongside Hamm and Giovanni Ribisi. Take a look. Joining me now is actor Kristoffer Polaha. Good morning, Kristoffer. How are you?
I'm doing great, Blake. How are you today?
I'm good. I'm good. So here's the thing. You've been a World Vision partner for years now. So can you tell me a little bit about what first drew you to this collaboration and why their mission's so important to you?
Sure. World Vision came onto my radar one day when I was watching an interview with Bono from U2, and he was talking about his work with World Vision. And then I did a movie with Meghan Markle, who had gone to Africa with World Vision, and she was telling me about it. And I was like, I think I want to get involved. And so I put together a team for they have a 6K clean water run. And I just built a team. We raised a lot of money for a great cause. And one thing led to another, and I became an ambassador for them in 2020. My wife and I designed little bracelets that you can find in the gift catalog. But beyond that, just being an advocate for the work that they do, which has been a joy of my life so far. It's been a great partnership.
Yeah, and I love that you've been able to partner along with them and bring more awareness to what they're doing. Now, also, whether people know this or not, we are currently in the height of hurricane season. So can you give us an idea of what World Vision's response to hurricane relief looks like?
Sure. I mean, it's an international Christian humanitarian organization, so they have a global reach. They have access to over 100 countries around the world. And if there's a famine or an earthquake or a hurricane or a political conflict, they show up and they bring fresh water, they bring food, they bring resources, they bring boxes of supplies and trauma kits. And moreover, they bring community, and then they stay put until the crisis is resolved, and then they help rebuild that community. And it usually happens in places where it's hard to be a kid. We take our luxury for granted in America, but there's a lot of places, and even in America, where it is really challenging to just have a healthy, normal childhood. And World Vision shows up and tries to offer those families and those children a respite from the trauma that is, natural disaster and war and all, the worry.
Yeah, thankful for resources like that. We couldn't do the repair work that is possible without people like that. Now, switching gears here a little bit, you are part of a brand new MGM Plus series called American Hostage. So what can you share about your character and kind of how you prepped to take on this role?
Yeah, my character is a man named Dick Hall who was taken hostage for 63 hours at gunpoint. He had a wire strung around his neck called a dead man's wire, attached to a shotgun, and then was basically berated for 63 hours by a guy named Tony Karitsis, who called the local radio station and spoke to a man named Fred Heckman, who's played by Hamm. Tony Karitsis is played by Giovanni Ribisi. And yeah, basically I spent 6 months in Winnipeg getting yelled at by Giovanni Ribisi and with a shotgun pointed to my head. It was and what you do to prepare for that is you just show up every morning and you get ready to get yelled at by Giovanni Ribisi for 12 hours a day. And I'll tell you a secret. When your body gets yelled at, it doesn't know that it's acting, and the hair stands up on end, and you react because he's also a very great actor. And so you kind of like believe that you're about to die.
Yeah, it sounds like outside of, acting, it sounds like it was a character building experience for yourself getting to work with those guys and take on this character. But I am kind of curious with that.
Absolutely.
You take on what feels like a very dramatic role, right? But actually this happens to like people all the time, right? We see people get kidnapped and held at hostage. And I'm curious, like, what was it like for you having to tap into that mindset and that, that people really do experience this in places all across the world?
Yeah, well, it was interesting because the man, Dick Hall, wrote about his experience 40 years after the fact. And he said it was his faith that kept him alive. And he went to a very small place and stayed there for those 63 hours. Like he just became very, very, very small. And what he didn't want to do was antagonize Tony. Dick Hall was a huge guy. He was a big, strong man.
Mm.
In fact, he was a football player in college, and in high school was voted like it literally it was he was given the strongman award. And physically, he was superior to Tony Kuritzis and probably could have beat him up.
Mm.
But Tony had a gun, and Tony had anger, and Tony had wrath, and Dick knew that the only way to survive was to keep Tony calm and to keep Tony talking. And it's a really fascinating character study. And the book that he wrote, it's called Tony and Me. It was a really interesting treatise on trauma and how people deal with trauma and survive trauma, and then after the trauma, heal from it or don't.
Yeah. Well, and it's interesting because it sounds like from what you're saying, what you learned from him, it sounds like when you're in a situation like that, right? It all depends on like a stable mindset, which not everyone is fortunate to have. And so it's really interesting, you know, the kind of positioning he took on with this. Aside from American Hostage, you also had your directorial debut this year with Mimics. So I'm curious, you know, we've seen you in a lot of acting roles, but how did the experience of directing differ from acting? And do you see yourself pursuing more directing opportunities in the future?
Yes, I plan to get behind the camera again and direct. And what I love about directing versus acting is with acting, you're just focused on your one role. You know, you got to know your part in the story, but you're there to serve the story. With directing, you're really world building. And so everything from the color palette to the tone to the music and the edit to the actors you hire and what they wear to the script and what people are saying, you really are just telling the story completely. And it was a wonderful experience. It was the time of my life.
Yeah, I love
And
that.
people can check it out on Tubi. You know, right now it's available for free on Tubi.
All right. They can watch it on Tubi. That sounds good and easy enough. Now, finally here, where can people go for more information to support World Vision, as we talked about at the beginning, and then also how can they tune into American Hostage?
Sure. With American Hostage first, it's MGM Plus, so you'd have to subscribe to MGM Plus, which is an Amazon uh, sub streamer, I guess. And you could go check the trailer out right now on YouTube. It's amassed over 5 million views in the past like 24 hours, I think. And it's going to be airing. The first two episodes are going to drop September 20th. Now, as far as World Vision goes, it's the easiest way. A little bit of change can create so much change for good in the world. And all you have to do is go to worldvision.org. Again, it's worldvision.org, and you can see everything that they're doing. You can learn about what the organization's all about and what they do and where their reach is and how they do what they do. They've got a gift catalog. My wife and I designed some bracelets. Other people have designed some cool jewelry and things, so you can, you can get a gift, and then the money goes to the World Vision Fund, which sends people out all over the world to help and to change the world for good.
To keep up with Kristoffer and his mission with World Vision, visit worldvision.org and tune in to American Hostage this fall on MGM Plus.